Now, thanks to the general manager, Mike Hazen, for joining us out here. Mike, this is great. You're joining us during a game.
Yeah, are we doing play-by-play?
Yeah, go ahead. I'd love to hear the GM do play-by-play of the team.
I only care to get out.
Well, that was nice.
We got an out.
There's one out.
Yeah,
There's
that was
an
the
out
second
right
one.
I'll tell you, let's start with the game on Friday then. And Corbin Burnes goes out there and he throws one inning, and we were talking going up to the game, Wolf and I, like, well, what are we looking for in one inning of spring? And he strikes out everybody. Like, what are you thinking when you see that?
Let's overreact, Mike.
I don't even know if I was awake during that inning of the game. Honestly, it's hot out here. It's been a long day, But listen, there's one thing that goes through my mind during spring training, and one thing only. You know what it is?
Injuries.
Don't get hurt.
Yeah,
Don't get hurt.
Yeah,
that's
it.
it.
I just didn't want to say it.
Well, yeah, okay, fair. When the manager and the trainer go walking onto the field, that's when I start to work. So other than that, just want to get through this healthy, build up, and get to opening day in the right spot. This is a tricky time of year. Historically, injuries are way more common in the build-up to the season and then in the first month. So you want to get through that without anything serious, knock on wood.
Okay, so the freaky Mike Hazen joining us here, of course, once again, and you're okay. Freaky Mike Hazen, wheeling and dealing. What happened?
Ding dong.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Okay. Wow.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your question.
No.
This doesn't happen
That was a little freaky right there.
This doesn't happen at 11:45 on a normal Wednesday.
Okay,
That's true. It's a little bit different.
Okay.
That's spring. That run doesn't really count.
Okay, good. What was I going to
What was I going to ask?
This is what I was going to ask right now. Now, Mike,
Yeah.
you're parachuting in on a whole different level than anybody else. You are the general manager. You are the guy that you are building this team. You have put this team together right now. What are your thoughts as you prepare for this season? What are your thoughts? Where are you?
The thoughts are continuing to build out the roster any way we can to ensure that we think we have a talented club. Obviously, that team has to come together and play well together, and that's gonna take time, and we're going to see it through spring and into the early stages. Our job is to continue to try to look down the road a little bit from a depth standpoint at this time of year, which is where are the areas of the roster that we need to protect. More often than not, it comes down to bullpen. Most years, it's your starting pitching. That's obviously not the case for us this year necessarily. Again, hopefully we get through spring healthy. But it's more so in the bullpen and then the bench and the options that we might have in AAA as we take on injuries during the year. So that involves the development of the young players that are here in camp, watching them who could be ready, whether it's on opening day be ready or be ready as we move into the season. So that's what dominates the majority of my thoughts at this time of year when we're watching this. You want the regulars, the stalwarts of your roster to get through healthy, get their work in, just make sure they're good. And then the rest of the roster, you're thinking down the road a little bit of what might happen as the season unfurls. Because once you go into the season in April and May, it's really hard to make transactions.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to trade with you. So the likelihood that happens is pretty low. So you're going to be relying on the guys that are in AAA that you have, which are the guys that don't make the team out of spring training or that you might be able to pick up at the end of spring. So that's our focus.
Is that would seem like it would be one of the most difficult things to do, and it seems like something you guys have done really well up to this point where you have a team that could win the whole thing this year, but you're also set up where you're not like going to fall off a cliff in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, no, that's obviously been the long-term plan. We've taken every year, I feel like we've taken every year very seriously. Like we've never gone into a season, even in 2021, and I keep repeating this because it was the truth. We've never gone into a season rebuilding. We've not one time in 9 years. So I'm proud of that we have gone out to win. We have had varying degrees of success with that, but we have gone out every year with the intention to win and make the playoffs. And having a team that I think could at least, in some cases, we had to squint a little more, maybe in 22 coming off the 21 year, but that we had to squint a little more to get there. But we've had competitive teams. I think so. That's our long-term goal, is to be as good as we possibly can and make sure that this can be somewhat sustainable. But this season was a little bit different for us going into this year because of the guys that may be free agents at the end of the year. And so I definitely think we put a little more emphasis into this offseason, which is good. We're very fortunate that Ken allowed us to do that, and I think it's something that the fans are going to appreciate. We appreciate, and hopefully we'll turn into a good ball club.
When we asked you to actually come on and talk to us, did you think I was going to ask you about the closer?
No, I thought the last thing you ever care about. I think when you wake up in the morning, that's all you think about. When you go to bed, that's the last thing you think about at night. I do. I think you wake up in hot sweats in the middle of the night. Who is going to pitch the ninth inning for the D-backs?
Saying right now, I also know that it's important to you. You've said that. It's important to Torrey as well that, you would like to have a guy that you could count on as being a closer. Having said that, do you think that closer is on this roster?
Do you know what I really think? I think that if you didn't play football, you would 100% be a reliever, and you would have come into Torrey's office every day and said, "I'm your closer. I'm your guy."
Torrey. What are you
so
doing?
I think that's what this is.
Throw some high cheese.
Yeah. I will get the last 3 outs for you because the rest of these guys can't do it. I got you. And Torrey would be like, "Well, you throw 79.
But
like
Mike,
I don't know how you're getting out."
Mike, the freaky Mike Hazen, it is important.
It is important.
It's an important position.
It is an important position. You're absolutely right.
Okay.
I appreciate your fixation on it, and I'm only giving you a hard time because you're right. Yes, we do think about it a lot. Do I think it's on this roster? I do, but it's not going to stop us from continuing to go outside the organization if we can add talent to the bullpen. I think Graveman, Shelby Miller, the guys that we signed kind of late there that could have the opportunity. Graveman obviously on a major league deal, so will, but Shelby on a minor league deal possibly, and some other minor league guys that have pitched in the back end of bullpens that have some experience that could emerge in those situations. Maybe there's a young guy we aren't thinking about that's coming up through the minor leagues right now that could emerge, but we have between Puck and Martinez, I think, can both handle it. Ginkel has done it in the past. It's kind of like the number one starter thing. You can't really say you're a number one starting pitcher until you go out like 3 years in a row and throw 200 innings, pitch into the playoffs, and you become a number one. You're not born into being a number one. You kind of have to prove it. The closer's the same thing. You pitch in leverage. You pitch when the game's on the line. You pitch in the seventh. You pitch in the eighth. You get the opportunity to close, and then you run with it, and everyone's like, oh, that guy's a closer. Well, he wasn't a closer originally. He was a seventh or eighth inning reliever. So that is where they come from, and I do think the bullpen is talented. So we'll see how it goes. I do agree with you, and I think as we've learned as we come through this, Torrey does like having a ninth inning guy. Okay. And I appreciate that and I respect that. And there's been times where I've minimized the importance of that. And then I think through the Seawald experiment, when we had Rodney, it was great. That was our first year, and he was awesome. We had Archie in front of him that dominated, so that helped Rodney a ton. And we went into this where we kind of played around with the closer role a little bit more, and it didn't go as well. I think it's set up much better when Paul was the closer and Torrey worked back from the ninth inning.
You said a lot more about the closer than I ever imagined.
Yes.
You were actually going to say.
But he's still going to ask you next time, too. So
100%.
I mean, that is amazing.
Yeah. I appreciate it. Tonight you're going to go to bed and be like, he never said who the closer was. Next week, Wednesday, first question.
There are a couple of guys that look really, really good in terms of throwing the ball to a point where you could be a closer.
Yeah, they have good
like
stuff.
You said,
yes,
Puck,
you
love that, and Justin Martinez as well, the wild thing.
That's right.
We like to call him.
Yeah, as J-Mark gets older, he won't be the wild thing anymore. He'll fine-tune that command, and then the huge stuff, the swing and miss stuff is going to really play. And he's a good kid, and he's a good talent, and he's got swing and miss stuff. That's what you're looking for, right?
Yes.
If you need to get strikeouts in some of those moments, and so that does become an important part in a lot of cases for a closer.
We're talking to Mike Hazen. Mike, the last 2 years, you've managed to keep most of the core of this team together, so they've gone through the experience of, at the end of last year, missing when they had a good team, but the year before going all the way to the World Series. So in terms of being an experienced team but also still a young team, how can that help your group, and is there anything in particular you guys looked at it at last year and said, okay, that we need to change for this year?
I don't know that there's a ton on the collective that we look at that we need to change. I think on the individual level, it certainly is the case for every person. I don't think coming off of 2023, anybody would have expected Corbin to have the first half that he had last year. But then when you sit back and look at it, now, did he get it? Did he get it? He didn't get it. Fly out.
Man, barely, though.
Just missed it.
Like 5 feet short.
I do think there are learning experiences especially for the younger part of our roster that they take with it. I think Corbin's going to be even better player now for what he went through at the beginning part of the year last year.
Totally
because you
agree.
learn through those experiences and the depths that you get to that you've never seen before. And then you get out of it, you realize, you know what? I can do this. It's not that bad.
Totally
and when you go
agree.
over 12, you could be like, hey, man, it was way worse last year, right? I'll be okay. And so I think those are the things that we want to see a lot of our Ryan Nelson, first half of the season last year to the second half of the season last year. Brandon Pfaadt, who's starting to put it all together, but hasn't completely put it all together for a full season yet. Like the young Gabby, we need Gabby to catch 120, 130 games for us this year. Like the things that Perdomo was hurt for the whole first half of the year last year. Alec Thomas had a rough year last year. Jake's coming off a really good year. Now, what's Jake going to do coming off the good year to go and try to do a lot of the things that he did last year? Those are the things that are the difference makers for those young players. When they learn from that and they apply moving forward, and you get the even better version of them. Not to say that Corbin couldn't have had a better year than he did in 2023. So it's not about having to necessarily just go put up more numbers and hit more home runs. It's about consistency. And with that experience, that young core, as they get more experience, what you need to hope when they apply all those lessons is that experience is going to lead them to more consistency. And if we get that, we're going to be a really good team, because the veterans we have on this team are really talented. But they need that young group to go with them to be a really good team.
Totally agree.
Yeah. The excitement level for this team, I mean, we were out here, we've been out here each of the last few years, but 2 years ago, I remember we were talking to the players, and we're like, look, it's always exciting this time of year, but there was an additional buzz of, like, with all these young guys, who knows what this team's capable of. It sort of feels that way again this year, of like, that there's not really a ceiling on this team. Do you feel that way?
We always talk about this when you look at the projections of where we're supposed to finish, and obviously we're supposed to finish way behind the Dodgers, and that is what it is. It's what you've seen on paper. The untapped part of that projection is when the young kids, when it clicks for some of the younger kids and they take a huge step forward. The projection doesn't see that because it's baking in their past performance and their age, and so there is built in some upside to it. But for the most part, it's like the history of what they've done, and if they take a leap forward, then that's where the untapped wins in that projection come from. And so, yes, and I do think with a younger team, there's an energy about a younger team. These kids want to impress. They want to show you what they can do. They want to make the team. They want to establish themselves in their careers. And so I think that's where some of the energy comes from in spring training. And they're talented too, and they're some of our best kids from a work ethic standpoint. And that becomes a very contagious thing. Like Perdomo is one of our hardest working players. He's so well respected about how he carries himself and he plays the game, that it's those are the qualities that good teams have. It's not always the best player in your team that drives the bus, right?
Right.
A lot of times it's those glue guys underneath that drive the bus, and we have a lot of those kids, and those kids all work hard, so the veterans respect them. They don't say a ton. They're not a lot of rah-rah guys. Like Corbin doesn't say a word. He just works harder than everybody else. And I think beyond being talented, I think the veteran guys look at that and they just tip their cap to it. They just respect it, and that's a lot of what we have on this team.
Can you talk a little bit about your rotation? Mm-hmm. And, Mike, to me, it seems like there's going to be a ton of competition. Mm-hmm. There's going to be these guys are still alpha males, right? I mean, these guys are professional athletes. They still want to go out there. They take an awful lot of pride and respect in their performance as well. I think this is going to be a great thing. Like, when you get 5 guys who are going to be, you think that was good yesterday? Give me the ball. Let me do this today. Does that exist?
Yes.
Or am I exaggerating?
No, you're not exaggerating at all. I think there's a degree of competing for your job that the young kids have to, when we talk to them in meetings, that they have to reconcile, right? It's like, got to go out there every day. Tori tells them you don't have to go 5 for 4, but in reality, in some cases, they got to go 5 for 4, right? And so and even if they do, sometimes, like, it's still not going to happen because they have somebody sitting on top of them. For the veteran player that doesn't have to do that, but there's still, my take on the situation is, like, I think if you just roll through spring training, like you're just getting on a bike with training wheels, and then on March 27th, you're just going to flip the switch and then go at the Chicago Cubs and their lineup that's ready to kill you, you're going to be in a little bit of trouble, right? I think regardless of what you're competing for a job, I think the challenge for the veteran players is still getting that speed ramped up where they're competing when the lights get turned on, and it's not going from 0 to 60. They're at 55 already, and they're going from 55 to 60. And I think that's what the good veterans do in spring training. So right now, you're watching them. I don't even know what Zach's velocity was today. He's probably going 50, 65, 70%, whatever. As he moves through spring training, you're going to watch that slowly start to tick up in certain situations, which is getting him mentally and physically ready to go at the Cubs on that first weekend. And And I think that's what that group with the talent and where they are in their careers, that's what they should be focused on when it comes into spring training. Is that competition still has to happen so that they're ready to go on opening day. So yes, that, and they should drive each other. You would hope that the players inside your walls are going to drive each other. There's only so much the manager and the coaches can do, and I can do nothing, right? The front office does nothing in that regard, but the managers and the coaches, they're limited too. When the players are driving each other, it becomes the most powerful thing in sports.
Mike, it's always great talking to you, man. Thank you so much for the time.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good to see you guys.
You're the
Yeah,
best,
you too.
Mike.
That's
Thank
Mike
you, buddy.
Hazen.
Thanks for watching Wolf and Luke. Tap to see more and click the button in the middle to subscribe to Arizona Sports.